Okay, we're here another week at Mutant Woods, and it's the last show of the year because we wanted to like make a show and not just like disappear, and that's why we're gonna like talk kind of everything. Kind of we're gonna jump a little bit around the new titles of Destiny of X that is gonna come up in April, and we're gonna talk about how things are right now in Krakoa that we have read because we haven't read every title. And we'll just make a little recap for ending the year on a high note. So that's what you can expect from this show starting now.
This week on Mutant Watch.
Okay, so I guess we can start with the titles of Destiny of X and then go. So I'm gonna see if I can like share the image. Okay, share the screen, and I think this is the way.
Oh,
Do you see it?
it's loading. There we go.
Yay! Okay, so these are the titles that are like have been announced, and some of them we already know the teams. Gabriel is keeping a score of that. I'm not keeping a score of that. But we can go over its title or more like its new title because I'm not keeping to date of Marauders. Although I'm a little excited about Steve Orlando taking over Marauders, so that's one thing. But yeah, okay. So Immortal X-Men is gonna be Kieron Gillen coming back to the X-Men after a few years, right? Like at least 5.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. And so what do you think or expect from this?
So we don't have too much information, but kind of what I'm getting so far about Immortal X-Men is it feels kind of like Game of Thrones, House of Cards, like political intrigue, like the members of the Quiet Council just going back and forth at each other, um, and all the drama that's going to cause.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like it's a very it fits the writer. I'm a little suspicious, but it fits because I have had other like little stuff in our Kieron Gillen runs, especially in the Uncanny, that I have been a little bit like this is stretching the character too much. But yeah, I'm suspicious, but I'm probably gonna read it.
Well, one thing about even with that is a lot of the characters that are on the council, they've been written a lot of ways. Like Mystique has been written so many different ways. I think it'll be hard to say like what is the definitive Mystique and what is out of character because so many writers have had their hands with on her. And then on the other hand, you have people like Destiny or Exodus who have not had as much of a spotlight and are going to be a little bit more of a blank slate in today's era. So I hope that means that it's going to be hard for them to be written out of character.
Yeah, I'm mostly concerned about magic being so close to that part of that picture. Because I didn't like Kieron Gillen's magic, but I didn't like almost anyone's magic, so that's maybe on me.
Well, I know that's one title that we've not heard much about is what's going to be happening with New Mutants.
Oh,
So it is still continuing, but Ayala's last run hasn't ended yet.
no.
So it's kind of, to me, it seems like it might be a bit up in the air. Is Ayala going to stay on it? Are they keeping the same characters?
Like we know for the solicits that the next arc of New Mutants is gonna be heavily magic centered, but that's gonna end sometime around May. So whatever happens with magic is gonna happen between February and May, or we don't know when it's gonna end because the solitudes of the last issue are not here, so we don't know. But it's gonna be like the next arc, the next like 6 issues.
And
That's gonna be magic,
that's
and
gonna be Ayala.
that's gonna be Ayala.
Okay.
Yes, thankfully.
Because the timing of that does line up with what we're seeing with all of these other titles. So it seems like a New Mutants might be and X-Men might be the only ones that aren't getting a bit of a shuffle with Destiny of X.
Yeah, it might be because I don't know. I hope the team of New Mutants doesn't change, and I can get into that later when we talk about like the stuff that is happening right now that has happened so far. But I'm really liking this run of New Mutants, and I just really hope this team doesn't change, especially because I want Ayala to write the new trans characters more, and that's probably not gonna happen in the Magic arc that much since it's gonna be focused. I don't know. Maybe they find a way, but I don't know.
And I do know that it is always a bit of a risk to try and pull too much from promotional art. But one thing that I did notice is that we do have Sunspot on this picture. So that makes me wonder if Sunspot is going to be rejoining the New Mutants, or if he's going to find himself maybe on another team.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, and going through that picture, Marauders is gonna get a change in creative team. Is Steve Orlando, and I don't remember who was gonna be the artist.
I have. That is going to be Eleonora Carlini.
Oh, okay. That's great. That's like new person coming to the Xbox, so that's great.
And they're also going to be doing a pretty massive roster shakeup when Orlando takes over. So it, from what I've seen, it looks like Iceman and Pyro and Kristen Frost, as well as Emma Frost, are no longer going to be on the book. We've already seen that Storm has gone off to Mars. So the only ones that so far have been carrying over is Bishop and Captain Kate Pride, where they will be joined by Dakin, Somus, Aurora, Tempo, and recently announced Cassandra Nova.
Yeah, the Cassandra Nova art is a choice, but that's interesting. I didn't remember the roster, so I was like, that. This is one of the things that I get from not keeping up too much, that I get surprised about things when you tell me. Somnus and Daken in one book, I like that. Especially after the Pride story.
And Aurora, who is also currently dating Daken. So it seems like some nice disaster, bisexual drama. Which I am all for. But what little bit I've seen about the plot of the opening of this run of Marauders is that Dakin actually gets kidnapped or taken or missing.
Oh.
Which would explain why Aurora and Somnus, I'm saying his name wrong, I know. But would explain why the two of them would be joining the crew of the Marauders. And I'm very excited to see Tempo on a book.
Yes, me too. Yes, I'm gonna pick up that one because I'm not following right now, but I'm gonna pick it up when Steve Orlando joins. Because that sounds like a really good roster of people. Cassandra is a little bit out of place there. that's like a risky choice, but having in mind the type of stories that Steve Orlando usually does, that are more like action pack and more like heavy lifting stuff and more like risky and kind of a little bit bloody, I think it could fit somehow.
I do also I'm skeptical about it because it's Cassandra Nova, and I'll be honest, I've never been a fan of the character. I didn't like Cassandra Nova in New X-Men. It seemed like the storyline that would never end, and then that carried on over to Astonishing X-Men. I wasn't a big fan of Cassandra Nova in X-Men Red. So I have low hopes, but also the Krakoa era has done interesting things with villains.
Yes.
We had Sinister on Hellions, which didn't work out the way it would have seemed. He was never a good guy there. And then we had Apocalypse on Excalibur, and that was also done, to me at least, in a very interesting way. So I'm open to giving it a try.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna go for that one. And X-Force, I'm not following that one. So
So I just finished reading X-Force. Um,
oh
and I'll be honest, I was a fan of the concept in the beginning. I do like that's Percy, right? Benjamin Percy?
yes.
Okay. I do like what he did with Choir, because Quentin Cryer is not a good person. He is a literal terrorist. Um, and now he's a hero. And I do think that Christina Strand started doing some of that work, and I know he was in Wolverine and the X-Men, even though I didn't read that. But I think Benjamin Percy did a good job showing kind of why Choir was like how he was and how he's changing going forward. Um, but the overarching plot of X-Force, it seems like it's just been going on forever. Um, I read it in spurts, and I some Russia is happening, and that's about all I got. Mikhail Rasputin is doing something, and Colossus is a puppet,
Yeah, I remember that.
and the Beast is still evil, but no one cares.
Yeah, I remember the whole Colossus being controlled by Michael, because I read that because of those characters, because I'm a little bit more interested in like the Rasputin family. But
I'm wondering if that plot's going to be something that's going to be picked up in Immortal X-Men, because now that
oh,
Colossus is on the council, so that might have been a setup. Um, but I don't know where X-Force is going,
now,
and
now that I
the,
think about it, I might be caught up because the last issues I read were was this Colossus joining the council. Like I read that.
there's a two-piece arc, which is really weird. Wolverine goes surfing, falls in love with a fish lady who's not a mutant but is evil. And then the evil fish lady steals some babies. And Wolverine is in love with her, so she gets away. I also Quire gets dumped by the Kuko who he's dating. And that's pretty much it. And like it felt to me, and maybe this is just me, it felt a lot like filler until Destiny of X can pick up where things were going. But I I don't know what's happening in that title, if anything's happening in that title. But the solicitation that is in the end of the last issue says that X-Force is going to be getting deadlier. And in that photo, we had Wolverine, Forge, Sage, Kid Omega, and Beast. So it's not going to be any new characters. And I do wonder if Domino and Black Tom are gonna fall off the team, or if they're gonna be sticking around.
Okay. I'm partially interested in the storyline with Colossus, wherever that goes. Um, yeah.
But we don't know where that's gonna go yet, so it's a bit up in the air.
Yes. Okay, Knights of X, which is basically Excalibur continuing, and it's I'm actually really excited for this one because I caught up on Excalibur today, and I really like this idea that I told Gabriel before of British people being the being the most hateful, the ones that after everyone is okay with Krakoa, they're like, nah, not fairness happening on my British watch.
Um,
So,
I am very curious about Knights of X.
hmm.
I love the concept of what Howard did in Excalibur. But if I'm being upfront, it was a lot. There was maps, there were data pages, there's like 7 different provinces of other realm, and they each have their own ruling party, and it's a lot that is kind of dumped on us in the data pages. So when it comes up in the actual comic, I I wish I could just pull back up the last issue and flip through because I'm not sure what's going on. But I'm loving the concept and I'm loving the character moments. And I'm loving the roster of Knights of X, which we are keeping Captain Britain and we are keeping Richter and Gambit as well as Shogo in his dragon form, the baby that never ages. And they will be joined by Shatterstar, Bay the Blood Moon, I think her name is, Doug's wife, and Rachel. Um, as of now,
Oh,
yes,
Rachel is here.
Rachel is there.
Okay. That
And
makes everything more exciting.
I think we're also keeping Megan on the title. It's hard to see if that's her or her daughter in the picture.
Oh,
Um, and
her very clever daughter.
her
I love
very
the
clever
very
daughter.
clever daughter.
Yes. I love Excalibur as a family book. It's about the Broddocks and their family: Betsy, Brian, Maggie, Megan, and Jamie and their role in Otherworld, and I've really been enjoying it. So I'm excited for Knights of X, especially now that my boys are back together again. You get
Yeah.
Shatterstar and Richter, and they're
Yes.
finally actually together after whatever they've been going through over the past 5 to 10 years. So I'm stoked for that.
Yeah, I like a lot when I was like reading the whole, because I didn't reread the whole thing, but I kind of catch up a little bit in other issues because I didn't remember a lot of stuff, and I actually like a lot how sweet the interactions between Richter and Shatterstar are. They are really really sweet. Like,
And I also do love the partnership, that the like rivalry and partnership that seems to be between Bay and Shatterstar, because they
mhm,
are two very similar characters in some
yes,
ways. Um, Also, we got in Excalibur and in the promo art for Knights of X, we have a Fury who has historically always been extremely difficult for any X-Men member to stand up against. And Richter, Shatterstar, and Bay were able to keep a Fury at, well, Bay, and actually damage him. And it just shows the power of these characters. So I'm extremely stoked about that.
yeah. Yeah, I think like the whole twist that Tini Howard has done on how to make somehow relevant the whole fear and hate as the stuff of the X-Men again in a kind of twisty way, it's working for me. Like
Yeah.
it's really working. Like that's when the book starts catching up on that idea, it really starts to really work for me. So I'm excited of her like just pulling all of that into a book like that, like because I feel like that's what the promo is for. Like the promo is telling us that this is going to be about those people that hate mutants in this way and how they are organizing that attack, and the last issue pretty much like sets it up with
And
Betsy going
yes,
there.
going back. And I also feel like Excalibur has been the title that really evolved well throughout its run.
Yes.
Um, a lot of the other titles, they either felt rushed at times or they felt like it was drawn out to make things match up with the various events, um, with Swords of X, with the Gala, with now the break that's happening because of Inferno and the lives and deaths of Wolverine. Um, but Excalibur felt like the pacing really worked well with these breaks. And the concept of what's going on in Excalibur evolved as it went on. And I'm excited to see where Howard is taking it.
Yeah, me too. Okay. uh, I don't have anything to say about X-Men. I'm not reading that one.
I am caught up with X-Men. It's another one where I'm not sure where they're going with it yet, but it's new. It's only 5 issues in. I'm not 100% sure what their real mission statement is, other than being like Avengers but X-Men, and just defending the Earth. So I don't have too much to say. I don't think that one is having any creative or roster changes. In Destiny of X, I do know that in the solicitation there is a brand new character that does show up. I want to say it's like Captain Krakoa or something like that. But I could be partially making that up. But other than that, it doesn't seem like there's any big shakeups with that one once Destiny of X hits.
Okay. And then there's Legion of X, which seems like it's gonna be about Legion. If I had to
Yes.
if I got to, yeah.
So I
Uh,
don't think anything has been released about Legion of X yet. If it has, I missed it, and I would love to see it. But Way of
Send it our
X,
way.
yes, send it away, please, please, please. Because at the end of Way of X, and it led on to that Onslaught Revelations, and then on the last page of that Onslaught issue, it just kind of has a little bit of a teaser, and it shows a roster. And I think the last line that Nightcrawler says is that they are going to be the Legionnaires. So I'm
Oh,
guessing that's what Legion of X is. And in that lovely roster, we had Nightcrawler,
okay,
Pixie, Dr.
okay,
Nemesis,
okay.
Forget Me Not, Juggernaut, and what looks like a ghost blindfold. I'm assuming she's astral projecting.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, but
Um,
no Legion.
I'm assuming he's gonna be there though, because he was a crucial part of Way of X and
Um,
Onslaught Revelations. A couple of other characters were involved that weren't in that, so I'm curious if they're gonna stick around. So the two Jorns were involved, and Stacy X and Dazzler. And I would really love if Stacy X was still involved, because that is a character that has gotten the worst end of the writing stick back when they left the X-Men initially, and I would love to see them get some kind of justice,
hmm.
please. Um, so yeah, it's I am interested. Plus, you got Juggernaut rejoining the X-Men, which is my favorite thing about Destiny of X. Even more sure so than Sight and Shatterstar and Richter getting back together. Because Juggernaut, I love him as a hero every time he's been a hero.
I suppose it's not announced yet, but I suppose this Legion of X title seems like it's gonna be written by Simon by Cy Spurrier.
That would make the most sense. That's what I'm thinking
Mhm.
too. But maybe Sai was just setting it up for someone else to take over.
Maybe, maybe. Okay, okay, I may give it a try. Okay, we don't have anything to say about Wolverine.
Yep.
New Mutants.
I'm sure Wolverine will be doing Wolverine things in Wolverine. And I believe that the new in Destiny of X, it will still be written by Benjamin Percy. That's all I know.
Solid sum up. Okay, so New Mutants. This is the thing that I'm most excited about. In like I hope they keep going with this like a long time. Like I wish I'm gonna like manifest this. I wish this was as long as Volume One. Like I I really wish that, and it's because it's uh, the last issues. The last I don't know if you caught up with New Mutants,
Yep.
but yeah, okay. So the last issue and what they did with Amal Farouk felt really powerful to me because it felt like it was a way of kind of undoing some of the harmful stereotypes associated with a character in a way that it also fit into the story. Like it, like
Yes.
it, it, it made sense with the story. With the story, it also like kind of the story itself was good by itself, even if you didn't know Mo Farouk before. But knowing the character before, it's really making a lot of like, I guess, justice on how much of that character was like an Orientalist stereotype at the moment it was created, while at the same time it's rooting for the character. It's not like making up a new character. It's not making someone different than Amal Farouk. It's just giving wider context. And the whole stuff that it has about like breaking cycles of abuse, it's really good for me. It's really like it's one thing that I probably should write something about one day because it's ah
New Mutants, this most recent run is something that I am a little bit conflicted about because, like you
Hmm.
said, what they did with Amal Farouk is really awesome. Ayala, to me, really retconned the way retcon should happen.
Yeah.
It was a way of kind of retroactively changing what happened, but still moving forward with the character that doesn't erase what happened. All of the harm that Shadow King did is still there. It's still relevant, but it now has more context, and it changes it away from some of those harmful stereotypes. And it definitely fits in with the thematic nature of New Mutants, which is trauma.
Yes.
And I do love that. I'm not a fan of the Lost Club.
Oh.
Something about the five of them just when I read scenes that they're in, it just feels off to me, but I can't put my finger on it. So that is highly likely to be a me thing. But I am excited to see what Ayala is doing going forward, and I love the way Ayala writes all the members of the New Mutants.
I. Hmm. Yeah, I think the Lost Club, that they deserve more like more like getting into what they feel like more, because we know very well the character from the New Mutants, so that like the old New Mutants team, so
Mhm.
that plays like Ayala plays into that very well. So, like if you're not a fan, this story is good, but if you're a fan, it's great because it's making this character, it's pulling from the stories of these characters of years and years and years of the story, and that's something that I love because I love them.
And I think that's why the Lost Club feels off for me is because there's not that well of information for Ayala to draw
Yes.
from. Uh, Cosmar is a brand new character, um, and as such, feel to me feels the one with the strongest identity of that group. You have Rainboy, who had like a cameo once upon a time, and now we're seeing him, and I know nothing about him. Um, you have Honey Badger or Scout, Gabby Kinney, which I think that Ayala does write great, but that leaves Anole and Martha, No Girl, and they do have a lot of comics that they've been in, but when I'm reading in New Mutants, to me, doesn't feel like it's matching up with what I know about those characters. So it's a little bit of a disconnect, but that could be a me thing.
Now I see it. I see how they need like more work to like convince you of how of like, especially because like in the thing with the Shadow King, when it's like all the characters like interacting with their different histories of trauma, the New Mutants are pretty well done. They're amazingly done. But the Lost Club is a little bit out there. It nothing happens with them there, and I feel like that's something that could like it could be explored further. And yeah, I just love of this is like I just love the ending of the last season we got of New Mutants,
Yes.
because so it showed Amal Farouk in like a very vulnerable and empathetic light, and that's something that I don't think happens a lot in Marvel comics with characters that are within those positions. He's a fat old Arab man. Like that's not something that I see that showed with like empathy, and especially someone that was a villain once. Like that's, I don't know. It just broke me the way like Ayala did that. Like that was wild. That was wild. Okay.
And that
So
leaves
yeah,
us with X-Men Red.
yes.
And as far as I know of, we have no information about this team, the creative team, the premise of this book. As far as I'm aware of, nothing has been announced about this. Um, and to me, it's also the one that we can't really draw much from. Um, is it? I don't know. Is it going to spin off of Hellions? Is it going to spin off of X Factor and Trial of Magneto? Those are both two stories that are have ended.
Hmm.
Um, is it going to spin off of Sword because that's not listed? Um, it's a it's a big old mystery.
Yeah, and the title feels weird to me, but because okay, let me explain. It's because those X-Men blue, gold, red, etc. things are not happening anymore, and I'm not sure that I want them to happen again. Like, I'm not sure I want a cluster of different teams of X-Men with different subtitles on them. That wasn't really an enjoyable era for me.
I do wonder if X-Men Red is going to be where we see Maddie and what
Oh,
happens with her now that she's resurrected. Because she is not shown on any of the other books, but it was left with that big cliffhanger. Um,
no,
so
but I think she's gonna show up in New Mutants.
in New Mutants, oh
Because
yes,
there's solicitations that indicate that she's gonna show up in the Iliana arc, which I'm really excited about. Like, because I can't stress enough how excited I am that Vida Ayala is gonna do an Iliana arc, Iliana focus arc, and Maddie is gonna be there of all people. So yeah,
so then I'm out of thoughts on what could be coming in X-Men Red.
yeah, me too. That's
That was my one,
whatever.
that was my one theory. I have been looking at the photo, and yes, we can only take so much from promotional art, but there are a few characters that are on this picture that aren't accounted for on the other books. So Iceman maybe off of Marauders, we don't know.
Hmm.
Storm was last seen in Sword, I believe, so I'm not sure where she's gonna end up. Um, Omega Red is still lurking around, and I don't know if he's going to be a villain in X Factor or not. Um, and then we also have Domino, Hope, and Sunspot, who have not been announced on any books. So I don't know if they're X-Men Red or if they're somewhere else entirely, or if they just really wanted to draw them and stuck them here for the funs of it.
I do have one speculation about X-Men Red, and that's that maybe it's a book that has a storm, but just because how is this artist called? Mahmoud Asrar, I think. He draws a lot of a storm, and he drew X-Men Red at one point.
Mm.
So maybe that's too much to speculate,
Well,
but maybe that's a clue to like how X-Men Red takes focus. Because if we look back at the last X-Men Red that we got,
mhm.
that one was like big about like uh I don't know. It's been a long time since I read that, but it was like about redemption and kind of like and a lot of things. And
Well,
it featured a storm, but the story of a storm there kind of went nowhere. So maybe they're picking up a lot of clues. I don't know.
kind of going off that with Storm being an X-Men in Red is Mars is known as the Red Planet, and
Oh,
Storm is the regent of Mars. So it could be the X-Men of Mars, which I would be very interested in, especially if it draws on the Orokin mutants.
okay. That could be if if that's like that when it happens, we figured it out and
we
nobody was listening.
There we go. We've reached the conclusion. Now
Yeah.
we'll see if we're right.
Twitter, be attentive to mutant words, because
We
we
know
figured
things
it out.
sometimes.
We know things sometimes. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing this. Okay. Oh, now that this doesn't make sense, we don't have a lot more to speculate on. Details. Um. Okay, so.
So, do you have final thoughts on so far where we are with Krakoa, and the journey it has taken us since? Because this is the ending of Hickman's era on the X-Men.
Yes.
Any thoughts on where he took it?
Hmm. I'm okay. Let me go on a tangent. I'm to answer the question. I'm liking Inferno a lot. I feel like it's been a really good. It's not a closure because it's setting more stuff than it's closing. I feel because I don't know how many issues there's one issue left, right?
There's one left, so we're three
Yeah,
down, one to go.
yeah. It's not a closure at all. Like it can't be a closure with how it's now. But I really like what it did with like kind of like tremble a little bit the whole thing of Krakoa and showing it because one thing that I didn't really like at the beginning of this era was how utopian the whole thing feel and how it kind of rubbed me the wrong way that there was a lot of fandom that was, and it's still to this day, it's very like Krakow is the best place in the world, whatever, etc., etc. And how even when the books criticized that, the general discourse was that it was the best place in the world.
I mean, but to be real, if we're talking about the best place in the world and the state of the world right now, that bar is very low. You don't need to do much to be better than like it isn't perfect, but is it better? And I think to me that's a big message of Krakoa, is that they are the next stage. It is better than the society that they left behind, but there are still a lot of cracks. There are still a lot of holes. There's still a lot of shadows. And several books did a good job showing that. Uh, to me, most notable was Hellions and Way of X, kind of showing that it's not perfect, that it does still have a lot that needs work.
Yeah. I at the beginning of Aliens was actually my favorite book of the whole thing, and it was probably because of that criticizing. Because I feel like a lot of Krakoa is, and that's normal because this is a comic book and it's published by Marvel, a big company. Because you have to have those things in mind. So you can't really publish a comic book by Marvel and let it actually truly be a guide for liberation of people in real life. That's not gonna happen. And what rubbed me the wrong way is how many people were like so willing to like take that posture of like this is actually liberation because like I don't know, like country like making treaties with other countries and selling drugs and making like a council of people who decide things doesn't feel like liberation to me at all, like at all. So so that's one point where I was like very like not feeling this book, this Krakow idea as nothing really radical at all. And in that way I didn't resonate a lot with the books when they started because they all were starting on selling that idea to the fans. And right now with Inferno happening and with how things are cracking up in other books and how some complex things are coming here and there about how not perfect the whole council thing is, about like how the things are coming up right now, I'm liking it way more than at the beginning because it's more messy. Because it doesn't feel like liberation now, it feels like a trial at them, like it feels like some powerful people organizing a thing for their people and kind of thinking for them, which is more what it should feel like at the beginning for me, and which to some extent felt like that, but only if you were like approaching it with like a lot of like critical thought. And I don't know. But all this to say that I'm liking how it's going. Like I'm liking more how the things that I have read, because I'm not caught up on every book, but how the things that have uh, like set up in Inferno and in even in Trial of Magneto, with what happened with Wanda thoroughly, like in the last season, etc., and in New Mutants and in Aliens. I'm liking a lot where these things go because they show like a complex, difficult problem that can't be solved by a bunch of like uh, people united by one oppression making a council and then deciding how people feel, if that makes sense.
Yes. It's acknowledging the fact that it's still flawed, and it still needs work. Probably by getting rid of Magneto and Professor Xavier, but that's just my opinion. Kick him to the curb.
Mystics should do that.
I'm hoping she is. What I did find interesting, it was not listed on Destiny of X, but I almost forgot this. We also do have another title coming, unless that got canceled. The Sabretooth
No,
title.
it didn't go cancel. I'm gonna
Okay.
review that.
Um,
I'm gonna review that, baby.
so we still do have that coming by Victor.
Victor Lavalle.
There we go. So that is another title that we do have coming, but it
Yes.
wasn't listed as part of Destiny of X.
Because it's gonna end, and I think it's gonna be like a mini series.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be like 5 issues or something like that.
Okay.
Hmm.
So we got a lot coming, and it seems like that's going to also be a commentary on how Krakoa didn't fix all its problems, because they did just kind of chuck him into the pit without a second thought, which we do see again in the ending of Hellions. And Krakoa definitely has its problems.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that series. Thank you for bringing them up because I would have forget totally. But I'm really excited about Sabertooth because I feel like because I'm a big fan of Virtual Lavalle on all the stuff that he has done in comics. I'm a big fan, and he usually takes a very like nuanced and layered approach to stuff. Like the 2 books that he has, which are Destroyer, which is kind of a Frankenstein retelling about police violence. It's wild. And the other is Eve. I think those are the 2 main comics. Maybe he has written some other stuff, that adaptations and stuff, but I don't remember. And Eve is like about climate change and ecological disaster from the perspective of how the youth relate to it. So both books are like dense, but they're carried with a lot of grace. They're carried with a lot of like detail and respect, and kind of I can feel the research. So I'm really excited about like someone that usually does that, getting that type of work into an X-Men book. Because one of the things that I like more about X-Men books is how they can talk about things that happen in real life. So I'm really excited about like I think the whole premise is he's gonna make some sort of commentary on punitivism, and I'm all here for it. Cause yeah. Because I'm really interested in prison abolition. So I'm really interested in how that idea can play out with Krakoa, which currently has a prison, and it's a pretty hostile prison. It's like it's very similar to prisons that do exist in the world, but it's like the worst type of prison. So I'm excited about that, just because I think that that's a thing that a lot of people could use to think about more in real life, because and maybe this book helps in some way. I don't know. Maybe X-Men fans can get into the groove of like trying to think of how people survive or live in prison, and that's yeah. Maybe I'm asking too much of an X-Men book.
I think you are, but we can have hope.
Yeah. So
Yeah. One thing about the Krakoan era that I love that Hickman started is I don't remember there being a time where the X titles felt this cohesive. Um, even though they each have a different mission, a different team, different creative team, the whole 9 yards, it definitely feels set in the same world and closer knit than any other era I remember reading.
yes.
Even more so than the Utopian era when they were all based out of San Francisco. Even that didn't feel as cohesive as the Krakoan era does. Um, and yes, I do think that some of the titles do suffer for the crossovers. And I hope that in Destiny of X they kind of find a way to make that mix better. Um, the fact that they all feel that connected, even so much as the ending of Excalibur has Shatterstar joining off of the pages of X Factor and has Bay joining off the pages of New Mutants. That kind of connection, I hope that keeps going forward now that Hickman is leaving. I know that in every X type book that we've had up to this point, it does list Hickman as head of X. And I do hope that they give that position to someone else to help keep that cohesion uh, going.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna say one thing that I really, really like about the Krakoan era, and it's I do like the cultural aspect of it. I do like the language, even if I haven't like learned it, and and I don't read the data pages. Like, so I'm not that caught up. I mean, I read the data pages of New Mutants, for example, and Aliens because they're usually hilarious. Uh, but I don't read most of them. But even if I don't read them, I like how it managed to like create culture and stuff because I feel like that kind of widens the metaphor a little bit in ways that didn't happen before. Because one thing that I don't like at all about the mutant metaphor is the whole like it's a gene thing, because it's super tricky and it can fail, like it can fall into like Ablay's thought because it's a gene that you can locate in people, and that's yeah, that's weird, that's wild to think like of any oppression like that. So I don't like that part, and I feel like the whole Krakoan thing has really muted down that part because it's making more efforts into showing like culture and common language and stuff that makes like more sense with the real world. Even if the gene is there, it's not as there as other ideas that have happened in the past that are like, yeah,
It's
you get
built,
me.
yeah, it's building its own culture, which helps it really cement into its own identity.
Yes.
It has its own language. They have their own music. They have their own laws. They have their own ruling government. They have their own social customs. It's definitely taking it and making it more concrete in a way that I do like.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. I even if I'm like against it being seen as an utopian state or whatever, I like that what has created around like giving them some a stronger form of identity that isn't just based around like a gene, which feels like super icky as an idea. Like I know it's an idea from the 60s, so so it's not like they're carrying out an idea from the 60s, but I would have not done that if I had invented mutants today, which maybe it's a controversial statement. Okay, so we got one person that did said something about like this era. Uh, uh, uh. Alligator Sky 4. I'm reading your tweet. It says, I genuinely have no idea what's going to happen in 2022, and that is incredibly exciting. And the next paragraph, which is the kind of like them, what we can talk about, if they do an X-Men versus Avengers event, as the FCBD issue might suggest, then I really hope it's X Office led slash it's over quickly. I'd much prefer another X only event in 2022 too, which it's another thing that we haven't talked about Destiny of X, which is that apparently they're gonna do an Avengers X-Men thing. I could not be less excited.
I I'm on the fence with that because the one downside to me for the Krakoan era is how separate from the rest of Marvel it does feel at times. They've had some crossover, they've had like titles in Empire and uh King in Black and now Devil's Reign. They've all had X-Men tie-ins. Um but it especially the only one I've read of those was Empire, and that did still feel very X-Men contained. It's just kind of they're dealing with the fallout of what's happening elsewhere. Um and I would like to see something a little bit more integrated. I absolutely do not want an Avengers versus X-Men type deal again because that did not go well the first time around. But I would like to see something maybe more along the lines of when we had the Unity Squad, where it's the Avengers and the X-Men working together. I think that would be interesting, especially considering the X-Men members who haven't been mutants and now are kind of up in the air with what they like Deadpool and Juggernaut. where they've kind of just been. We still don't really know what role, if any, they have on Krakoa.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. But I don't know. I'm a little bit icky about an Avengers, especially for who's writing Avengers. Like,
Well, yeah, but it could be an Avengers X event being written by someone completely different.
yeah.
So it's a bit. I'm on the fence. I'm willing to be open minded, and see what happens. Um, hopefully, but on the other side of things, the last time the X-Men were fully immersed with another title was Franklin Richards.
Oh,
And yeah, I think the less said about that, the better.
that was wild.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it was done slot. It was okay. This is the show where I criticize people by name. I'm so glad we're not having like a super special guest or something like that. Because, but yeah, mm,
Uh,
I don't
is
know.
is there any character or any plots or any points that you hope we see in the new era of X-Men?
Hmm. That's a good question. I hope I really want more of you know my answer. I I really want more of Danny and Xian and Karma. Um, I really want to know more of what happens with Rain and her son. That's a thing that's keeping me like on the chair every time it happens
Hmm.
in that book, and I really wanna something good for her for once. And I really like the whole thing with Doug and Warlock s- spying on the council via Krakoa. I really love that. I would love to see more of that. And I'm just gonna list New Mutants.
You're just gonna list off every character of New Mutants.
Because I was
Um,
like, I'm excited to know what Sunspot has. That was my next thought.
I definitely would like to see more of the families of Krakoa.
Hmm.
Like you got Sam out there with the wife and kid just chilling in Shiar, and I would love to get a more focus on that, on the Guthries in general, obviously always. I am excited that it looks like we're getting a bit of the Wolverine family and Lives and Death of Wolverine because it looks like Dakin and Laura are involved. I'm not sure about Gabby, but
Hmm.
I would also love if that extended to the rest of Wolverine's 10 million children that he killed. And I would love to see more of that. Just kind of what the family life on Krakoa is like. The only thing that we've seen is that brief issue about Arrow with the Guthries when she got her powers back, and then what Howard is doing in Excalibur. But there's so many mutant families, and I would love to see that get a bit more of a focus. Also, I would love it if we got, and this, I never thought I would say these words, but I want us to get more Gwenpool. Williams made me like that character, and I was not expecting it. And she made it onto Krakoa, and then nothing. So I would love to see more of that, and how she fits into all that, since she kind of made herself a mutant, which is very interesting compared to the whole Franklin Richards debacle. So I am curious about that. Um, and also Wanda and her kids. And I'm very curious as to what Williams is going to do with that and where she's going to leave us at the end of Trial of Magneto.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious about Wanda too. I'm nervous about Wanda too. um, I also I also really I'm conflicted with this because I really like what Villa Ayala is doing in New Mutants, but I also wish that by the time we arrive to the mandatory prize issue to appease the gays, we 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 have developed more of those secondary trans characters, and so they could get like a story or two, or three or four, and that would lead into other book or whatever would come after that.
Hmm.
And that's something that I really would like, but I also wouldn't like for New Mutants to be. I mean, they're gonna do a magic story, so they're really like putting me on the fence on here. It's like that is unfair. If I have to choose between Ileana and trans representation, that's a tough choice.
Just making you make the impossible choice there.
Yes, but still, I really hope that whatever happens with Ileana kind of leaves room in that book for those secondary trans characters to shine more and to have maybe kind of a central role.
I would have really liked those characters to have been part of the Lost Club rather
Hmm.
than Noel, Mothra, and Rainbow. I think that would have been a great chance for them to have that unique identity, um, and have Ayala really run with it. So maybe hopefully we can see something like that happen with those characters.
Yeah, yeah, I would really like that for them being included in the story in some way, and then later New Mutants focusing more on them, because like as much as I love my kids, so I love New Mutants, but I really like these new characters, and I would hate for them to be like forgotten forever. I think I prefer for them to like take a leap forward and have less of my children.
So
It's
that way
hard.
they get a chance to be established, and hopefully another writer, if not Ayala, can take it and kind of run with it.
Yes, yes, I would really like that because I feel like that's one main failure of Marvel in general, and that they don't have like a lot of trans characters. And when they have them, they are isolated in one book with other characters that are not trans,
Hmm.
which is not how real life works. So that would be like one of my main wishes, like for sure. Like if I could like change only one thing, I probably change that. Being really sad later that I can't like have like 5 books with one member of New Mutants being the main protagonist in one of them.
I say that should be the next event that happens, just New Mutants of X. Each New Mutants member gets their own book and their own team.
Yes, yes, I fully endorse that idea.
See, Marvel needs to just hire us. We can be the new head of X.
That would be nice. Just do New Mutants.
That's our answer. Just New
we
Mutants all
can
day, all the
we
time.
cancel Wolverine
Yes.
without having read it. Yeah. And another book that is gonna happen, Gambit by Chris
Oh,
Claremont.
I forgot Gambit was happening.
That
But do
just makes me laugh.
do we know anything else about the book? Is it set? Because I saw that the cover, I think,
Hmm.
and it was
It
Gambit
had
in his old costume.
and it had Kid Storm, which is a thing that hasn't
Yeah.
happened like
So is
for
this
years.
is this because I do know that we've gotten Claremont books in the past where it was set in the Claremont era.
Hmm.
So I don't know if this is going to be Krakoan based or what.
Yeah, maybe it's not Krakoan based. Maybe we don't have to worry about it so much. Nah, just joking. It's probably enjoyable. I don't know. It's probably a lot of nostalgia.
Yes. Uh,
So
and that being said, I Claremont has come up with some stuff like that Excalibur one, the Genoshan Excalibur to me is such an underrated comic, and everyone needs to read it. So that way I could get my Wicked and Freak Show back. Because we've only seen one of those once since that ended. Um,
yeah,
And on the upside about Claremont really likes his Claremont characters. So maybe if we get Claremont back on the books, we can get back Wicked and Freak Show, which is all I want.
And Nocturne. That would
And
be
Nocturne.
amazing.
And Nocturne. We need more Nocturne.
Yeah. No, yeah. We should do one show about New Excalibur one day. The thing is, we haven't done a show about Excalibur, so I feel weird about like the original Excalibur. So we should do that before New Excalibur. I feel, even if like reading Excalibur feels like too much right now for me.
Yeah, Excalibur is huge.
Yeah, that's like when we did like Exiles, and my head hurted. And okay, so I had something else too. Oh, I forgot. I don't know. I want to ask you about Inferno because you're also reviewing that.
Yes.
Yes.
I am reviewing Inferno, and it is very interesting. So you said earlier that you don't think it's a closure. I do think it's a closure.
Oh.
It seems like this is Hickman trying, which I can respect. He's trying to take a look at everything that he laid down and then pulling it in to tie things up. I'm not a big fan of how that executes itself sometimes, but I do respect that he's trying not to leave us hanging. So we have the Moira X situation that's being resolved. We have the Okyrus situation that's being resolved. We have the Mystique and Destiny situation going on. We have what is the Omega Sentinel, which is being resolved. It's Nimrod, which is being resolved. It's a lot. It's a lot that's being jammed into these 4 issues. And it seems like we are set to get that finished with the one final issue, which I believe is coming out at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
Or at the beginning of next month. I don't know.
Okay. It's coming up soon. So I am curious to see what the payoff is, because to me, Inferno was hard to look at in individual pieces. I wasn't a big fan of the first issue. I wasn't a big fan of the third issue, but the second issue was incredible.
Yeah, that second issue was amazing.
Yes.
That those panels of day on the first week, or I don't know, the first day of the first week, they talk about there was reconnection. That was great. That was amazing writing.
So I'm curious how Hickman's going to tie things up, and I'm looking forward to looking at Inferno as one piece instead of 4 separate pieces, because I do think that is going to make the first and the third issue smooth out once I see what the full picture is.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna do a show about Inferno in January.
Yes.
I'm gonna put that out there. I'm right now picking up the people for doing that. So we're definitely gonna do that. And yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it's a good moment to like pull out some of the shows of January. Not all, because not everything is confirmed.
Yeah.
But some of the shows of January, we're gonna do the Inferno thing, and we're also gonna do a show about Sabertooth, the first issue. That even if it's just you and me, I want to talk about that one. That's my little candy. And we're also probably gonna do a Magneto thing. But that's in the works. Yes. Yeah. But I'm not tied by my words on that.
So we got lots of stuff that we're working on to try to make 2022 great for you guys. So keep tuned.
Yes. 2022 is gonna be like the year of Mutant Watts, or something. maybe it's this one, maybe it's the next one. I don't know. Okay, I think we're done for today, and yeah.